we go. This is one pass I'd love to have made on the pitch. I watched Gordon Darcy over decades. I mean, he was one for a long, long time. He played for Leinster and for Ireland. I was lucky enough to be a venture holder. Still am. There was lands down the road, and now I'm in the stadium. What a wonderful player and what a wonderful representative of Ireland he was. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Gordon Darcy.
Frank, thank you very much. Greetings to everybody from down in South Africa. I've no doubt the weather is an awful lot nicer than it is here. So absolutely delighted and honoured to be asked to speak at this. So I was really delighted with the, I suppose, the topic for today about the opening channels, and I think rugby has a huge role and sport has a huge role to play in this. You know, there is a huge rugby connection between our two countries, and it actually dates back to the first international match in 1906. More recently, one of my first and earliest memories is Nelson Mandela presenting the trophy to Francois Pienaar at the 1995 World Cup. And I was very lucky to be asked to tour South Africa in 1998 while I was still at school. Thankfully, I wasn't able to go because when I saw the matches on TV, I'm not sure I would have been able to stand up to them. But I had to do that many times during my career. And being a 5'10" centre, I always had to be at my best to deal with whatever South Africa were throwing against us, particularly Jean de Villiers and Jacques Fourie are two that spring to mind. So I did mention about the opening channels, and I think this is very important. And sport traditionally can break down channels that other aspects of society might struggle with. It plays an important role by encouraging participation, integration, diversity, values that are equally as valuable in the business world. It also plays a role in creating social capital by deepening connections, openness, respect between individuals and groups. And hopefully sport can lay some foundations for businesses to follow. Well, we're on the cusp of this very exciting time between South Africa and Ireland. As I said, I believe sport can be a key component on this journey. The recently announced Rainbow Cup, while COVID has laid waste to our best laid plans, it is a template for a very, very exciting new tournament. And I can hardly wait for the expanded Pro 14 to the Pro 14 next season to begin. Because this new tournament is going to bring these teams, South African teams, are going to bring our tournament to a new level, and the injection of new blood is going to be phenomenal. And then, especially, I think when travel returns, the natural migration of people between the two countries, it's not only going to support this tournament, but it's going to have a very, very open and welcome unintended consequence, one of new business opportunities that would not ordinarily arise. And one of the speakers talked about being innovative and being proactive, and I think this will definitely fit into that mold. So what I love about it is that rugby is also just the start. There are other sports, with two phenomenally, sport is almost in our DNA from both countries. And I remember being in South Africa at various times, and the growth of soccer in South Africa has been exponential over the years. And I had the privilege to play in some of the amazing stadia that were built for when they hosted the Soccer World Cup. And cricket, cricket is one of the games that you think about with South Africa. So incredibly, Ireland and South Africa have only played each other twice in football. And I had to check that twice. I had to check that a couple of times. So we played each other once in a Nike sponsored tournament, and then in a standalone friendly. As I said, having witnessed the passionate support that is available in South Africa, I think there's almost a moral obligation that we get the South African football team up to the Aviva as soon as possible and to play the Irish team and give them a good old fashioned Irish welcome. Our cricket has grown over recent years, and we're starting and slowly to get a foothold in Test cricket. And I was really, really delighted and almost serendipitously that Ireland are playing a one-day series and a T20 series against South Africa in July of this year. So I believe there's more and more to come from these relationships on top of rugby. Now, on top of that, there is also the very small matter of the British and Irish Lions touring in South Africa this year. And I think it just shows the impact of COVID that we are delighted to say that a team is going to be touring. And I think there's an awful lot of work has gone in behind the scenes to make sure that this has happened. I know from the British and Irish sides, there's the complications around delayed tournaments and getting players released. That's all been resolved. And then in South Africa, there's I suppose the paper. My father said the paper will never refuse ink. There's chat about that South Africa will be undercooked coming into this series. In my experience, I don't think South Africa are ever undercooked. I think they'll have plenty of time. A lot of bodies that would have played an awful lot of rugby up to the 2019 World Cup. A couple of injuries off the back of that have all gotten a little bit of time. RG Snyman about to make his return from injury for Munster, I think this week or perhaps next week. Damien Delande, Jesse Creel playing, rugby of their lives. Who else was they looking at from the South African perspective? Faf de Klerk obviously going to be released from Sale. So I think the stars are aligning for South Africa, and they have possibly one of the best coaches in world rugby at the moment, and he plays a game plan that suits traditional South African values. So they are going to be very, very hard to beat. Every time I see Etzebeth, I am so happy I don't play rugby anymore. Being 5'10" and seeing the size of him, I'm quite happy to be commentating on these games. But I think South Africa are going to, the way they play, that physical attritional style, I think that's the way they're going to approach. And I don't think you need a huge amount of match sharpness for that. So I think an awful lot of it is around getting the mental side ready for that. And I think that's where Rassie is brilliant. He the motivation side and the preparation side between him and Sia Kolosi for the 19 World Cup was perfect. So they're going to build an awful lot off that. I think I've been on 2 tours with the Lions, and I've seen it done badly and I've seen it done well. And I think Warren Gatland he's the magician when it comes to picking players and getting them to play for each other. So I think we have an awful lot of exciting talent come through. Stuart Hogg, the dancing Tyke Furlong, Mara Toje, the great Alwyn Jones, potentially captains coming into this tour. So I think there's so much to be excited about on the horizon, and I think it's going to be a very, very exciting series. I'm delighted reading in the paper this week that South Africa, with trying to get fans safely back into stadia, and I think that will make such a difference because the Lions is probably one of the last professional entities that still has its DNA rooted in that player first type of approach, and they has to transcend all the computers and all the tactics and everything like that, and it just has to go back to playing for your mates. I think it's a really, really special thing, and I'm delighted it's in South Africa. I toured there in 2009, and aside from the fans shaking the bus outside of the stadiums to try and rattle us, it was one of the most welcoming and beautiful countries I've ever been to. And my wife and I, when I finished playing rugby, we toured South Africa with our 3-month-old, and we were there for 2 months, and it was one of the most relaxing times of our lives. It was designed to draw a line in the sand post-professionalism, and it did exactly that. And the garden route down to from Knysna and up to the wine country in Cape Town. It was a beautiful country, and one thing we pride ourselves in Ireland is around our welcome, and I think it's equally matched in South Africa. So listen, thank you very much. Exciting times ahead, and I encourage everybody to open channels as best as possible.